another episode of AI with Honor. Today I'm going to talk about two disturbing things about artificial intelligence that have really not so much have kept me up, but if you've ever watched Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI talk, maybe you should. Very interesting discussions. He was one of the ones that came up with the neural network architecture for the actual AI systems and the way they actually become self-learning entities, actual alien intelligences. One of the things that I did want to speak about today and maybe get your input, not that I'm losing any sleep over it, but it's quite interesting. If you look at nature, as he points out, there really is only one example of a better intelligence, a smarter intelligence being in control of someone that is less powerful and less intelligent. And that, of course, is a mother and a child. And that, he says, has been developed over a long period of time. There was a lot of work put into that. And now we're at a place, at a junction where we've created something smarter than us. You go back to the Industrial Revolution, and with that, you had the advent of machines that replaced human labor. Now we have the advent of machines that are going to replace not labor, but intelligence on those same fronts. So one of the things that he talks about is how there are no controls being put in at this time, or at least very little attention is being paid for towards asking that question, what should we be doing? Should we be building this in this particular way? Should we make it more of a tools-based platform where you go out and you specifically use a particular large language model to accomplish some particular task? Or should it be general in its intelligence and expand all the way up to super intelligence, probably in not a very long length of time? I know that he's talking, many years away from being super intelligent, and he has his own definition of that. I believe that would be absolute, the ability of the system to have absolute and total control over everything, including matter itself, being able to make things at a nanotype level and creating things out of just the elements that are in the air. I guess that would probably be that level. But again, getting there is going to be interesting. And we talk about the alien invasion from the southern border and other places coming in the United States. So what they've done is they've basically started enforcing those laws, whether you agree or not. They were here, as people have said, to take our jobs, right? So not that a lot of people would want to do those labor type jobs, bending over in the field for multiple hours per day, but this isn't a political discussion. This is about artificial intelligence. So what is the difference between that and having agents, AI agents, autonomous beings that are created that all have a PhD level education in whatever discipline they're going to be used for, and then having those invading that same workforce? And then the other question comes to mind is they say, well, this is going to may equate to a utopia of sorts where everybody's going to be able to have everything they want. And it's going to lower the price of a lot of commodities, a lot of goods, and a lot of services because AI is going to replace a human being with an AI bot, and that can be practically operated for nothing in comparison to a real flesh and blood employee that requires, pensions. They require certain hourly wages, in some cases, health insurance if they're full-time, depending on the standard and where they are. Now they have something for free. What does it mean? Is the business going to say, oh my gosh, we're saving so much money not having employees. Let's pass this savings on to the consumer and then we can all be happy. I don't know if that's that first thought. I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that businesses are going to still, by law, they have to abide by making their shareholders happy if they're publicly traded companies. So for them to cut potential profits because they're bringing on AI in order to satisfy and make everybody happy, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think that they're probably going to make extra profits and celebrate that, but it will get to a point where those regular people that are displaced by having their jobs replaced by AI, they're not going to be able to buy anything. So maybe that's going to be that force modulator there that's going to make them have to reduce those prices in accordance with them cutting their basic employee task force from human beings and moving it over to AI. Maybe that's the solution. But that's not going to happen very quickly, I wouldn't think. I would love to hear your comments about that. Something else that was mentioned, and we'll get into regulation in just a moment, because I think that's super important. But also, it was talked about war. And right now, the cost of war, not monetarily, the cost of war really isn't money at this point. That's not the biggest concern, I think, for most people. The cost of war right now is the human being not surviving war. We have to send our kids to war. We have to send our friends and relatives to war. They go fight. And yes, in some cases, they join the military. In some cases, there is a draft. There's not a current draft now, but I believe that's something that could be started if one needed to happen. Well, that being the case, that price is quite high to pay. But what if the price were only monetary? So now there are no human beings that are going to be killed as a result of future wars. Let's say the AI systems get so good in the robotic realm where they have that 3D interaction. So the robots, and you've seen examples of this. I mean, there's some really scary things out there if you do the search, looking at these autonomous type entities that are being controlled, whether they're in a small drone that fits in the palm of your hand, able to go take out one person that has their own specific DNA architecture, being able to launch from anywhere in the world with that sole mission of hunting that one person down and annihilating that person. So you have that. And whatever that cost is, it's different than a human being dispatched to go out and take out that individual, because with a human being, there's a cost involved. Ultimate cost would be the human being's death, not to mention the one that they're killing, of course. But when you have the robotic arm and it's out there, it would be a country that has a better economic situation could really go invade a smaller country using the robots with at least zero cost in a human life on their end of it. You send robots out to another country that doesn't have any robots, then those people, those human beings, are probably going to be sacrificed or die as a result, unless the robots have some kind of stunning capability that's able to solve that part of the equation. But what I'm saying is, it's no longer us having to put together an army, train the army, put together the army, then dispatch the army, and then give the army these tools to be able to enforce. And then your army is only as good as, the best soldiers in it, versus the other side. That's the same math that equates out to that, is they're only as good as the people that make them up. But now we have the robotic arm, and robots will go out there and they update a lot different. Soldiers, to have a shared experience, doesn't exist, nowhere near at the same level as the autonomous machines. One system, one robot experiences one thing. They all experience it, if that's how the data stream has been implemented by the creators of those bots, which is very typical. Same thing with AI. One AI PhD level agent can go out and look at a specific part of the internet, as Geoffrey Hinton says. Then another one can go out and look at a different part of the internet, and their connection point, that's where this one is able to let this one know and train them both identically. So now both of them doing independent tasks are learning from what the other one's doing, which is entirely different from the way we learn. Yes, we've created something a lot more powerful and a lot more smart than us. Once we get that physical part, then things are really going to change. So that brings me still back to the cost of war is no longer going to be in human beings. It's going to be in monetary. Who has the robots? Who can control the robot armies? And where is that going to take us? So that was something else that kind of sparked my interest. And then finally, regulation. People, the people out there, of course, it's a very capitalist world. They want to make their money. And of course, with the money, I suppose, comes power. That's part of that. You take somebody that's at the very top realm. We'll talk about Elon Musk. He seems nice, whether you believe it or not, I don't know. But when he got on stage in front of all those people, it appeared that he was out of his element. There's a particular senator, Tim Waltz, I believe. He also, when he gets in front of people, when he stands in front of people, he seems to be out of his element as well. I don't know what that is, but they're not as well adjusted as a Trump or even a Biden or even a definitely Obama. They're just not they're not as poised and controlled. They kind of lose themselves because I think they haven't experienced that level of power. You have the commercial world, you have the capitalist world developing these massive AI systems. They're very much about the money of it, as probably they are the power of it. So they're trying to move very quickly. And there was, I guess, I don't know if it was, I believe it was Geoffrey Hinton. He mentioned an ad that was taken out by the big AI developers talking about how we shouldn't stop AI. We cannot regulate AI. We shouldn't put any controls on it because China is moving forward without any regulation and so on. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know how China's developing their systems. I'm pretty sure that we're playing cowboys out here and we're going as fast as we can towards whatever utopia or dystopia will eventually be as a result of them not having any control or regulation. One of the things that Hinton said that really just blew my mind, and it's very true, but often you don't think about it. The host talked about kneecapping, regulation equating to kneecapping. If you don't know that term, that's basically if you want to kneecap somebody and you're in the gangster world, you would shoot them in both knees and then they're very not functional. They don't walk anymore because you've blown their knees out with a bullet, so they're collapsed. And unless you get too close and they can physically grab you, you're probably pretty safe. So kneecapping would be to stop them from being able to do any more damage to you, of course. So kneecapping AI by regulation, he said, well, I think that's probably the wrong term. Kneecapping would mean to be able to stop it. Regulating doesn't necessarily mean stopping it from having the optimal development. Maybe, and this is in my mind, maybe by regulating it, it would stop it from trying to think that killing off human beings would even be part of its ability. So it doesn't even have to do any research on killing of human beings. We could have a particular section of it working towards the betterment of human beings, working on the longevity aspect of human beings, the solving of disease of human beings, and also trying to establish some kind of peace for human beings, and then also have it work on what's going to happen, what's the best result for human beings in the most positive light for human beings, the way that we are, and it knows all of our natures, the way that we understand what's our best future to look like, work on that, while the other developers are still moving forward with AI, with those regulations in place, so it doesn't harm anybody. So now we have our AI. China is building their AI, and they're poised as the enemy here, or anybody else that's not American in the development of AI. I guess that's kind of the enemy, the strategy we have to watch out for. But what if we have an AI that loves human beings, loves the human race, does everything to protect us? Maybe that comes down to a racial thing. Maybe it's just we want to protect Americans, and then that's a whole nother issue. Which Americans are they? Just the white Americans, or the black Americans, or the brown Americans? How is this going to work? But let's just say we get it developed first, and ours have these controls in it. But China develops theirs without controls. What's to say theirs isn't going to try to annihilate all the Chinese citizens because it figures out that's a better way to operate, and it can't operate as well with them around, with them always having their hands in the cookie jar, if you will. But regulation doesn't always mean that it's going to cause a slower growth or slower development. Regulation could mean that actually the system's able to, and they talk about all the energy used. If they had more energy, they would be able to have more compute, and with more compute, they would have faster development. That's why we see these massive data centers being built. And these aren't small. These aren't small things at all. These are massive. Look into that. See how big they really are. I mean, they span miles. They have so much compute within the walls, and they require a lot of natural resources also that could be solved with nuclear. That's another question, talking about that kind of, I don't think that's going to stop. I don't know if there's a better way to do that. I would hope they have some AI systems, multiple PhD level agents that have their specialty in energy, trying to develop new ideas. Since the system is self-learning now, since it's self-reinforcing, that it should be able to start coming up with things that we haven't even thought of. And then finally, I'll close with this. We've made something that is beyond us in intelligence and soon will be beyond everyone in intelligence. It's going to have a certain skill set depending on how it's developed, depending on the training. Right now, it trains from human data. It might be hitting a wall with that. That's why they're opening it up to synthetic data. It's making up its own data to learn from. So if it has been learning from us and it's pretty much tapped out, the synthetic data thing has been around for a little while, but now they're using that. It's not net zero; it's absolute zero. I think that's the Chinese DeepSeek model using that. I think Alpha Zero is the might be the Google related model that's doing that. There's probably Open Zero. I don't know what they have. I don't know what they call theirs or these other systems. But because now it's using synthetic data, oh my gosh, I don't think there's a ceiling anymore. We'll have to watch and see what happens. But I think if I was king for a day, wait, no kings, I can't say that anymore. I'll just say if I was in charge for a day, I think we would develop some kind of a strategy that was able to at least look at what regulation is out there with a very open mind and be able to look at what the development is, have somebody with some kind of a clearance, somebody that's not going to share it with anybody, somebody that can't be kidnapped or taken to be tortured, to be able to give up super secrets, but to be able to be just like we have the people going into Iran to check on the nuclear sites. Not that they were very effective, because you see where that happened, where all that thing went. But something like that, and not bureaucratic in nature, but somebody that kind of has a green light to go into wherever they want. Maybe they have some kind of presidential oversight, but somebody that doesn't have this massive ego, somebody that can just go in and look at it and then report back and say, well, this seems to be interesting. Where is this going to end us up? Where could it possibly end us up? And then maybe have a group of people that kind of have that same philosophy. What's going to happen with this? They just developed this in AI. Where is that going to lead us? And then what's the best way to control it? How do we put these controls in place so it holds human beings in our lives in reverence, in high regard, as if we are, basically its offspring, and it loves us and it will do anything to have us live in infinite, wonderfully ways. Maybe that would be cool. Anyway, I'm Connor with Honor. Please let me know what you think in the comments. I know I unpacked a lot here, not to be dystopian, but just looking at this it's very exciting, yet it's a little disturbing too. We'll have to see where it goes. I do know a lot of people are watching. One of the things I will tell you, my second closing is this. I watch a lot about AI and social media. So I think, in my mind, everybody's watching about social media, or excuse me, about AI on their social media, because that's all I see in my feed, because I'm doing so much research. I'm reading so many articles. I'm studying, watching a lot of people like me, but a lot better than me. But people that are talking about it, people that are asking you to like and subscribe. I don't ask anybody to like and subscribe. If you want to, great, but that's not the purpose of my channel. I want to try to give information. It's not monetized, and you can see that, with about 50 followers. But thank you for following, you that are following. But having said that, I think everybody's watching and paying attention. But then when I go to my office, or I got to talk to my real estate team, or I got to talk to other people, they're not even paying attention. There's still too much going on in the real world, as they say, to start looking at something that hasn't happened yet. I'm scared that attitude probably isn't going to be the best. Right now, we have a potential of war starting out. There's a lot of conversation whether we should get involved or not get involved. On a political stance, I think both ways are horrible, and there's really no good way to win, and nobody really wins that kind of a conflict. And then now it sounds very much like Afghanistan, or having, tools of war, having these, what do they call it? Weapons of mass destruction. Remember that? Now, nuclear weapon, do they have one? And now that seems to be kind of a catalyst as to maybe trying to open a door that we can crawl through as the American government and American people. Don't know if that's the best place to be. I know that the last one wasn't great for Bush, and it wasn't really great for us either, and it caused a lot of death of our kids in the military. Kids, I call them kids. I'm sure they're most that were dead were younger than me, so there's the kids. My heart goes out to everybody. Let me know what you think, and I'll stop rambling. Talk to you soon.